Oh, yeah, move. Yeah, tell him to move.
Move. Okay. You slightly agree that the college should be invested in weapons of war. Why?
Well, I mean, weapons, if you look at the physical institutions and the market for it, it's much more than that. It's AI technology. It's a lot of development in aerospace. Again, like one of the biggest manufacturers is Boeing. Besides for their civilian passenger jets blowing up in midair, they also produce a lot of weapons. And it's a very mixed market, and it's hard to separate them from other companies that are more motivated towards that. And not to mention, it's a question of if you're going after those markets, it's the banks, it's financial institutions. So to truly go after those is, I would say, radical, because that's the entire portfolio.
Who wants to try to do what I just did? No brave, intrepid souls. Williams College should be politically neutral. What about that one? Who wants to do that? Raise your hand. 1, 2. Okay, come on up. Yay. Do you want me to participate or no?
Nah.
Okay, so I'll step aside.
Where are you?
Williams College.
Your name?
Alec.
Major?
I think political science.
You think? What concentration in political science?
Comparative politics.
Interesting. This will be applicable. Major.
Philosophy.
This should be a good talk. Pronouns.
Next.
I'll go he, him on that one.
Okay, next is gonna go for okay. Williams College should be politically neutral. Move. You slightly disagree. Why?
Yeah, I think that on a lot of issues, Williams College doesn't really have a stake, can't represent the opinions of everyone in the community. However, on certain political issues where it directly affects Williams College's ability to educate its students, I think it's perfectly reasonable for them to have public statements about that.
Give me an example of a political issue that affects Williams College that Williams College should not be politically neutral on.
Yeah, okay, sure. I'm not totally certain on the question of the recent Supreme Court decision overturning affirmative action in admissions. I think that's a contentious topic where the entire college community can't really be represented. So that's maybe a toss-up for me. I'm struggling to think of an example where the Williams College in recent memory concretely should stand on a particular issue.
Okay. Fun fact for the audience before I ask Alec how he feels and why. I know how he feels, but why. There was a Williams College student, I think, may have been the original plaintiff for the Supreme Court case because he couldn't get into Harvard, so he went here. Alec, why do you feel that Williams College should be politically neutral?
So I actually agree with Tenda on some of his points. I think that Williams should be politically neutral because a lot of issues do not affect the college directly. And because of that, there's no reason to take a political stance on what is and could be a very polemic issue.
Polemic issue. Okay. Political issues exist that do not affect the college. Do you agree? Go.
Okay.
There are political issues that do not pertain or affect the college. See, he's philosophizing. Alec, tell me why. While you philosophize, why?
Well, I would say that there's certain issues that the college is not affected by, specifically issues that either don't affect the college because of our geographic locations, if you look at the current issues with states' rights in the Supreme Court, but more importantly, we're an academic institution. There's a lot of things and policies that will not affect us because of that, although something like affirmative action that is targeted towards higher education will indeed be a very applicable issue.
Okay, cool.
So I think that looking at the broad scope, probably every political issue affects the college campus in some way insofar as that all of the students, faculty, etc. are political actors. For example, campus protests are a mode of action that can have real world effects if we're talking about a place like Columbia University, especially where it's in the center of New York, gets a lot of media attention. That being said, in isolation of that, I don't know if, for example, wars going on in other parts of the world necessarily affects the college's ability to teach its students.
Okay, interesting. Williams College should make a political statement about the war in Ukraine. Move. Okay. Williams College should make a political statement about Israel and Gaza. Okay. Alec, you moved from neutral on Ukraine to strongly disagree on Israel-Gaza. Why?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'm deeply involved in Ukraine. I was there for about a month and a half this past year. So I think that they should not make one. That being said, I will say I'm somewhat biased as I'm quite heavily invested in what's happening there, as I am with Israel and Gaza. I was in Israel as well last year.
Okay. So why? So you have more bias, you said, for Ukraine and less for Israel.
Yeah.
So why should they make necessarily? Why would you lean more towards the college making a statement about Ukraine but not Israel-Gaza?
I would say that the Israel-Gaza conflict has become deeply politicized, much more than Ukraine. And I would also say that the war in Ukraine is much more impactful in the future of future conflict. If you look at other issues such as Taiwan and other issues such as future insurgencies by other powers in the BRICS nations, I think Israel-Gaza is very isolated, and you can draw it to Iran. But if we're talking about this specifically, again, I'm a little bit biased because I've spent a lot of time, I've seen a lot of things in Ukraine. I've also seen things in Israel and Gaza. And I think that one is much more relevant than the other when it comes to campus.
Okay. For Ukraine, you are on disagree, and for Israel-Gaza, you're on strongly disagree. Can you delineate why?
Yeah, I buy some of Alec's reasoning here. I think that Israel-Palestine is just a far more contentious subject. And on that, I think that leadership would be much harder for the leadership of the college to represent everyone's opinions and everyone's feelings on this particular conflict as compared to Ukraine, where it seems like there's a general consensus in the community. Either way, I think there's other principles that should preclude the college from deciding to take a stance on either matter.
Okay. Reset. Neutral, please. The college should continue making land acknowledgements. Go. Okay. The college should both make land acknowledgements and reparations to the Native Americans that were displaced or forcibly moved from the college. Okay. And then I swear I'll question them. Neutral, reset. The college should just pay reparations to the communities and not do a land acknowledgement anymore. Okay. You stayed mostly on the disagree, or entirely on the disagree side, but oscillated on which type of disagree you were. Why?
I'd say first and foremost, back in high school, so I'm from the area, so I used to work with the Mohican tribe that once inhabited this area. And I've also seen the rise in land acknowledgements, and first and foremost, they don't change anything. It is strictly performative, and I think people think that they are making a difference, whereas it's actually detrimental to the cause they want to make because they're just allowing things to continue as they are. As far as reparations goes, I think that there's a good case to be made for both sides. I also think that the college has a unique opportunity and ability, seeing as how the very large landowners and they have a lot of resources, to actually do something that either improves relations here. They open an office on Spring Street. I think that is beneficial. But the way that it's done currently is very much an issue of virtue signaling. It's a question of, well, who's the most supportive while nothing gets done.
So then why, when I ask the questions about like just reparations and not land acknowledgements, were you still on the disagree side?
Well, I definitely oscillated more towards the slightly, because whether you agree or don't agree with reparations, those are concrete and physical actions. Whereas a land acknowledgement does nothing, but people think it does.
So why not go to the agree side if it's just reparations?
Again, I think that's a very contentious issue that in some ways, less so than other issues, has become politicized as well.
Okay.
And something that I have very mixed feelings towards, both in support and against.
Okay. And then why were you in certain positions and then moved around?
Okay, I started off on a slight disagree on land acknowledgements. I don't think it's the biggest deal, but it just seems a little bit performative and not super efficacious. I moved to neutral for reparations and land acknowledgements, and also reparations, just because reparations, there's a very wide scope of what that could be. I think some, formulations of reparations could be very good. Some of them could be not good, and I think it just goes down to the specifics of how they're outlined.
Cool, interesting. Williams College should be able to invest in politically motivated financial investments. Okay. I'm also going to add to the question. Williams College should be able to invest in weapons of war or weapons manufacturing. I feel like those two are connected, but if you guys don't, tell me why. Okay, go.
Well, I would say no.
No, they're not connected.
Tell them to move.
I said, yeah, move.
Oh, they're both. You guys both.
Yeah, I said go, but I guess move.
Oh yeah, move. Yeah, tell them to move.
Move. Okay. You slightly agree that the college should be invested in weapons of war. Why?
Well, I mean, weapons, if you look at the physical institutions and the market for it, it's much more than that. It's AI technology. It's a lot of development in aerospace. Again, like one of the biggest manufacturers is Boeing. Besides for their civilian passenger jets blowing up in midair, they also produce a lot of weapons. And it's a very mixed market, and it's hard to separate them from other companies that are more motivated towards that. And not to mention, it's a question of if you're going after those markets, it's the banks, it's financial institutions. So to truly go after those is, I would say, radical, because that's the entire portfolio.
Okay.
Are we talking about weapons right now or other politically motivated?
We'll talk about weapons, and then if you want to talk a bit about politically motivated financial investments, go ahead.
Yeah, I think on weapons, I'm not sure. I have to think about it. In my own personal investment habits, I don't invest in any weapons manufacturers.
That's
I'm
good.
pretty sure. And I do my primary investment in stocks is a sustainability based ETF. But
It's not Bitcoin?
no, it's not Bitcoin. Sorry, Alec. But
Very Williams College answer, sustainable investments.
well, I'm not sure if I would will that to be the institutions. I think there's one side that's political neutrality, that's a motivator. On the other side, there's some sort of fiduciary thing where it's we want to maximize the performance of the endowment, and then you could make the argument that the more sustainable investments will outperform. So really, I might need to put more research into this topic and really weigh the principles.
Okay, interesting. Reset. It's disingenuous for the college to both be invested in political matters, but also remain outwardly politically neutral. Go. Oh, Alec, we find common ground.
Well, I would say first and foremost that investments almost always are not politically motivated. Again, you're not donating to Act Blue or something. That's not where the college endowment's going, I hope. But it really is a matter of, I think people politicize these issues. And again, I sort of want to go back to the question of war. As someone who's seen war and seen how it's like, war is evil. It's also a necessary evil, because the reason it happens is that there is a conflict, and if that does not go unmatched, then something worse will happen. That's the entire premise. And I think when it comes to a lot of these investments, people want to say, oh, it's X, Y, Z. They're investments. It's not a political statement.
Okay, the reason why I ended up here is I was thinking in particular of Boeing, because there have been many calls for colleges across the country to divest from Boeing. And of course, Boeing is involved in military-related things. So there's definitely calls for people that say Boeing's supporting genocide and such. But also, I think Boeing also does a lot of stuff that's not related to the military, like, consumer flights. So I think it's really complicated to parse those kinds of corporations that have their feet in two different puddles. That's not an idiom. But you know what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Reset. Neutral. Investments are politically neutral, even though they result in different political actions. Go.
Yeah, I just think it's a little bit incoherent to separate financial performance, the number going up, from whatever consequences are result from investment in that. I think, a single-minded look at just the financial performance of a fund or whatever is single-minded.
I agree. Alec disagrees.
Well,
Why?
I would say it's a matter of means and ends. If a politically neutral investment has some political outcome, that's not the intended consequence. Again, it's a question of, did Dick Cheney make money off the Iraq War? Does that really matter? Again, I don't think it does. It's a matter of investments.
All right, last one, Lester, real quick. Ask them to flip sides and argue the other side.
Okay, flip sides and argue the other side. Go. You have to do it, Alec.
Okay.
Do you want time to formulate?
I think Tenda has some great points, so you should go first.
Okay, I don't know. I think the steelman I'm trying to make for this idea is that your marginal investment in whatever company doesn't really itself have a singular effect on the... So maybe on an individual scale, investing in, I don't know, oil companies or whatever doesn't really have a material effect on their actions. But I mean, the premise of the question is, even though there's material difference. So I'm struggling with this one.
That's okay.
Let me ask you a question. So this is an example of a question I'd ask. So if you, and I one of the reasons I asked is because you're a philosophy major. If you can't steelman the argument, do you think you were justified on being on that line? Shouldn't that level of confidence, to have that level of confidence in something, wouldn't you have to be able to steelman the other side?
I think, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so
Wait,
if that's the
you're
case, shouldn't you have only gone to the slightly then?
Yeah, I'll concede that.
I'll let Alec go, and then I'll do the thing that you did where it's you give what you think.
Okay.
All right, is that okay?
Yeah.
I'm going to give the politician's answer and say, I'd love to continue this conversation.
You're not giving me an answer, Alec.
Yeah,
You
I'm
can do
not.
the whole steelman thing again.
Look, what I'll say is, it's difficult for me to see a non-political investment as having these political means. As political ends, I should say, as, again, investing in a company having these results. I just don't see how that's possible, in the sense that, again, if you are investing in a company and it's a neutral company, the outcome should not matter in a political sense.
All right.
Yeah, so ask him so you can wrap it up.
I'll wrap it up. Wait,
All right.
Go back to neutral, guys, please. Thanks. I invite you to go back to neutral. I don't know. I think that we can't divorce investments that we claim are politically neutral from political ends. I think if a college is invested in big oil or is invested in weapons manufacturing, that has a direct result, and be it small and individualized or large and non-individualized, has a result both on culture of acceptability, of saying we're politically invested in these, or we're not politically invested in these things, even though we're giving them money to keep doing what they're doing. And I think it's disingenuous, and it's kind of turning a blind eye to whatever's going on by saying, it has no effects on political reality. And it's just a way to line one's pockets. So that's what I think. Thanks, guys, for
Thank you.
coming.
Woo! Good job. You're a natural at that.
Yeah.